are setting clear down there.
Recording in
I gotta
progress.
say, Tom's by himself.
Well, we
And
got
they don't give me a name tag, so they're trying to figure out if they're gonna keep me or not. And,
All right, well, the last one didn't stick around, so.
Just, my screen's not working right here, just so you know.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, time is 1:30 PM, and I call the November 15th, 2023 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. We have 5 members present with 1 coming. If you feel like your petition needs to be heard by the full board, please let the staff know now. Do not wait till your petition is called. And we will table your petition until the next meeting when we have more board members in attendance. We will first ask that the public comment of those sitting in the chambers, then call on the members of the public attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in public comment of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. Board members, please state your name when making a motion in a second. Please silence your cell phones so you do not disturb the meeting. And can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Tavernier?
Here.
Mr. Hawley? Mr. Byers?
Here,
Mr. Veldman?
Here.
Mr. Ritzma?
Here.
Mr. Roush?
Here.
Mr. Schaefer?
here,
Petition number 1, location 52277 Hickory Road, an unaddressed 6.47 plus or minus acre abutting parcel to the north and west. Owner, Harvest Bible Chapel of Granger Incorporated. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.378 to allow three freestanding signs where only 1 is permitted. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is Farial Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. The petition before you is for the Gospel City Church in Granger off Hickory Road. The church building sits on 2 parcels of land making up of approximately 10 acres and 650 feet of road frontage. Shelley, could you click on the PowerPoint? Sorry.
Is it turned on?
Sorry, that was actually my fault. Basically, the petitioners would like to erect 3 freestanding signs at each of the access drives onto the church campus. These signs are intended to be directional signs that will point drivers to the best entrance point. This property and the surrounding properties are zoned residential, and in that zoning district, properties with permitted non-residential uses are only allowed 1 freestanding sign per the ordinance. All right. I'd actually like to start by showing the site plan first that the contractors originally provided to us. You can see where those signs are proposed at each of the access drives. This is the sign rendering they had provided. Basically, they are proposing 6 square foot signs, really just intended to help motorists with navigation. Here is a view of the existing church. This is another view of the church from the southernmost access drive, so like the one to the left side of the drawing. Again, from that south access drive, this is looking north down Hickory Road. Finally, this is a better view of the other drives. This is that second middle access drive going in and out, and then the northernmost drive is also visible kind of beyond that fire hydrant. Looking at state law criteria, staff finds the variance will likely have no impact on public health, moral safety, or general welfare. Given the large size of this church and the many access drives, Having the multiple signs as proposed may actually improve safety to some degree of those coming in and out of the church and the traffic alongside it. The use and value of the area adjacent will not be substantially affected in an adverse manner. The signs are not unreasonably large or proposed in such a way as to interfere with anyone trying to make turns. Finally, staff finds the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties. As stated earlier, the ordinance only allows them one freestanding sign per street frontage. However, our sign ordinance does have a provision stating that if you have a large amount of frontage, over a certain amount, you can be permitted an additional freestanding sign. For that to kick in, the property must be located in the B business, commercial, or industrial district. Since this is a residential district, they do not get that provision. If they were in a different district, they would have been allowed an additional sign by right. So given that, and also the large size of this church with the multiple access drives, we are recommending approval of the variance. We did receive one letter of remonstrance from a nearby property owner in regard to this petition, which is in your packets. His concern is mostly in regards to the enlarged footprint of the church over time, and that the signs could be used for unnecessary advertising. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
In that letter, they also mentioned lighting.
They have not mentioned lighting. The variance, the site plan they've provided is just to add the three
No,
signs.
I know, but in that letter,
Yes,
it also mentioned lighting was an issue, so I,
absolutely.
for what it's worth, I don't know how to add that.
I will say, I looked into that. We had not previously received any complaints for lighting on site. We do have lighting regulations in our chapter, so if that is a concern, it is something we could potentially look into.
Was there, just trying to be respectful of the remonstrance letter, was there, have they done anything with regard to their footprint or anything that wasn't allowed by right or without pulling a permit?
No, not that I could find evidence of.
Okay, so the zoning's appropriate.
Yes.
Is a church permitted in an R1 district by right, or does it require a special use permit?
It's permitted by right.
Okay.
And it is also permitted by right in all the other districts
Okay.
I mentioned.
Okay, you guys got any more questions? No? All right, is the petitioner present? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Potts with Professional Permits. My offices are located at 58171 Dragonfly Court in Osceola, Indiana. Here tonight on behalf, or I guess this afternoon, it's not tonight, I don't want to give up this day too early. Here today on behalf of Harvest Bible Church, as well as Gospel City Church, it was the name of the church. What For Oil had summarized is pretty much what we want to do. These signs will not be illuminated. We just want to provide some wayfinding for the parishioners and for those that are visiting the church so that they know what the appropriate drive is and how to navigate on the campus. As far as the lighting goes, and I can certainly talk with the church. I can speak for them. I'm sure they don't want to be a bad neighbor. So if there's any sort of shielding that needs to be done, we can certainly look at that to reduce the amount of light overflow onto neighboring properties if that's a concern. And I can answer any questions that you have at this time.
One question I have is you've got the office, you've got the parking, and then you've got such a wide bottom portion on there. Is that for future, in case you guys expand anymore?
Right, in case there's anything else that, they find from feedback that, hey, we don't know how to get to the children's chapel, or we don't know how to get back to the office or something else, then they could add an additional text on there.
I guess I have questions, may also be for staff, I didn't think about it during that portion of it, is, I see that this is an incorporated business. How does it constitute them being a church if it's also a business? What qualifications make it a church?
I am not a legal expert,
I
so,
can tell you, most churches are incorporated as a not-for-profit corporation.
Okay.
They would still have the Inc. at the end of it.
Okay.
to indicate that they're a corporation, but
So what
usually
proof-
they're a
What
nonprofit.
proof do they have to give us to show that they were a church operating in R1 by right?
I
What
don't think-
constitutes a church?
I don't think that's the question you guys are being asked today.
Sure it is, because if this was a business asking for signage like this, they would have to prove that as well too, and we may look at it differently versus a church. At least in my mind, I can't speak for the rest of the board.
I don't think legally it matters at this point unless you have reason to believe that they're not operating in a manner that's allowed in the R1 district. I don't think it's really relevant to
Well,
your
business would not be
job
allowed in
today.
R1 district.
The primary use would have to be a church for it to be allowed by right.
Understood. What is
Yeah.
qualification for a church?
I can see if we.
Hey, we define religious use in the zoning ordinance, and then we include other accessory uses such as schools, institutional facilities, daycare centers, and social uses in the definition. Nothing is required to be provided to us to verify that the use is permitted. We go off of the definition in the zoning ordinance.
So if they're operating a cafe inside of this church, is it a business?
A lot of churches will have coffee shops or cafes for their members.
Okay, so that muddies my waters even worse. If they're operating something that may be for profit inside of this not-for-profit establishment, doesn't that constitute a business?
I don't think that the place to question that is in a request for a sign variance.
But it changed, I guess in my mind. I
That
know-
would be something that you would, if you have reason to believe that they're not operating in a way that complies with the zoning ordinance, the way to deal with that would be to make a complaint to staff and have them investigate. This isn't
I
really
don't
the
have a
vehicle for
complaint about
that.
anything. I'm asking,
Joe, are you asking are the signage requirements different from a
business
business?
to a church, right? Would this be different if there was a business wanting to put 3 signs in versus a church wanting to put 3 signs in? Thank you, Dee, for your clarification.
No.
More based on the zoning district than the use.
Yes, it's based off, we have like a table that says what district you're in.
Okay.
And then there's permitted, so non-residential uses in the R district.
So it wouldn't matter, church, business, anyone asking for this would need the same variance?
Yes,
Okay,
for 3 signs.
understood.
That would be on that cheat sheet that I've been asking for 6 months.
Have there been any incidences that you're aware of with this church on accidents on the road based off of the signage not being there?
I am not aware of any, no.
Anybody else got anything?
Is the church opposed to reducing the size of the sign, to DJ's point?
Yes, we would be actually, because in order for it to be visible, it has to be of a certain size.
But you're only
So-
using a portion of it. If you look at that 2 foot by 3 foot, to DJ's point, you're only using the top 2/3 of it.
Well, that would allow us to expand further and not have to come back here and request another sign variance.
Okay. Understood?
Good.
Sure.
Anybody else got anything?
There's no off-premise signs, correct?
No, not that
These
I'm
are all
aware of.
on-premise?
These are all on-premise.
Okay. That's it.
Sid, you got anything?
Yeah, if these signs weren't right next to the road, if they were back in, would they have to go through the same permitting?
They're not what do you mean by off the road?
Well, these are basically just off the, kind of almost in the right of way where the X's are.
Yes, they would still be, so our ordinance is guided by the type of sign, not necessarily the location, although it does say you can't locate it.
So if
A
they put
certain
a sign
amount.
clear back by the building in the parking lot directing people that this is over here and that's over there, they'd have to come back and get another permit to put another sign up?
We do have a category under exempt signs that's called campus sign, It's a sign that's interior to a campus, provided it's not legible from the street, and those are exempt. They don't require any permit or aisle improvement location permit from us.
So that's just telling you where things are. It's exactly what you're saying. It's,
But it would be legible from the street because it's placed.
yeah, it's supposed to, yeah, it has to do with the road location. It's what it's all the only problem.
It's not gonna be illuminated. It's, I don't.
No, I see. I was just curious, because to me, they're just informational signs. They're not a sign like advertising.
Right, that's what they want.
Yeah, I know that's what they want.
I have one more clarifying question. So the way the public hearing is listed, it is only for the 3 freestanding signs, but in their petition, they show 3 signs and then also a variance based off of the square footage where it states shall not exceed 4 square feet in surface area and 4 foot in height, and they're requesting 6 feet. Shouldn't this be 2 variances?
The second variance was not necessary because the ordinance would permit them to have a 6 square foot large sign. I think that originally they were looking to have these as, to classify them as signs that would be, would not need a permit. But if it wanted to be a sign that would not need a permit, it had to be like 4 square foot. But now, since they're coming for the variance, we're classifying them as freestanding signs. As freestanding signs, they can be 6 square foot,
Okay.
but then they just can't have that many signs. They're just only allowed 1 per street frontage since they're in the residential district.
I think I understand that. So if they were only 4 square feet, it'd be okay to put 3 up?
Yes.
They would be exempt as parking lots.
Yes,
Another type of
we would then classify them as another type of sign if they
Gotcha.
were smaller. But as the petitioner noted, they can't reduce the size. So that's why we're here for the variance.
They can't or they won't is a great question, so.
They'd rather not.
They'd rather not. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
I do have a question on a petition.
Okay.
Do,
I need your name and address, please.
Yeah, Rick Burmeister, 18531 Beach Way.
Okay.
They're wanting to put in a new sign. I'm concerned with the state of disrepair of their existing signs. Namely the one at the corner of Darden and Emmons, and also the one at the corner of Cleveland and Emmons.
That's a different petition.
Pardon me?
that's a different petition.
You're talking about the Georgetown apartment sign, is that correct?
Yes, and those are Georgetown signs. And the
Okay,
one-
you'll want to wait until petition number 5 to ask your question.
Okay.
It's a long way away for.
All right.
Now I get it.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition online? Seeing none. Anybody who would like to speak against this petition, please step forward.
I think so.
Seeing none. Any on Zoom?
There is one on Zoom, one moment. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We sure can, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for alerting us to the zoning meeting. My name is Karen Deladonna. My husband was the one who sent the letter to your board.
I need your address, please.
Okay, 52-300 Hickory Road. We live directly across from the church.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here with my next door neighbor. She is in our home. I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Imelda O'Malley, and I live in 52256 Hickory Road, which is just a little bit north of Deladonna's property. Okay.
Okay. And some of our issues stem way back to the rapid growth and commercialization of that whole property. I recognize that we missed our opportunity to put forward a protest to the changes that were made. On paper, it looked like they were going to pave a little bit and put in some landscaping. At the time, we had no idea that they were going to put in 25-foot lights that were going to be lit all day, all night, and every single day and night. The light pollution is, how can I put it? It's rather ruined our country style living. We are concerned that the addition of more signage, I mean, I'm at least pleased to see that they're not going to be illuminated, but even the increased signage is going to make it look like it's another commercial area. I've had a number of friends, including realtors, say that this has impacted or will impact our resale value when we go to sell. So we are going on record as opposing what's going on right now.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe we haven't had the opportunity to do this. The people of the church seem like lovely people. I love the fact that they want to build the kingdom of God, but it definitely has not done much to improve, our home living situation. We've been trying to build a berm actually along the side of our road because when cars are going in and out, the headlights come right into our living room, and the lights from the parking lot light up the sky at night, much more so during the winter time when some of our trees have lost their leaves, but it doesn't even matter. I mean, they're so bright over there. There's 25-foot lights that are on all night long. So I don't know if we can ask them to kind of work with us, either have those lights motion activated or at least dimmed at night or something. And then please don't do much more to make the whole area look more commercialized. I think when we moved here, it was Cornerstone Community Church, and I think it merged with Harvard Bible Chapel. At the time, it looked like a large home with kind of an unusual parking lot, and it's definitely morphed into a mega church. And as nice as the people are, it just really isn't, and I don't think it belongs in a residential area. And it's just a difficulty that we are going to have when we go to sell this property because of that church over there.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
And it
Imelda?
increases the traffic on Hickory, which is, a residential area too. It's
No.
it does. And, just coming and going, and again, it's not what we expected it to end up being.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, I was not telling you no, I was answering a separate question. So don't think that I was telling you no. Sorry about that.
We couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
We couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
You guys, you've got about 45 seconds left.
Oh, okay. Do you want to say anything else?
Well, I feel the same as it doesn't, the lights don't impact me as much as they do Karen, but, they're just quite opposite. And there's another house also, I don't think they have just moved in, so I don't think they maybe were aware of this meeting. I don't know what their names are, or the name of those people, but so it obviously impacts a few people directly.
I would just ask that if the people that are there and thinking about these kind of things, doing these things, if they would
Got about 10 seconds.
if they would want this across the street or next door to their own homes, my guess is that they wouldn't want 20 parking lot style lights and lots of signs all around in their residential area. Thank you for listening to us. We're not against the people of the church. We're just against the commercialization and the layout and how large it's become.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You do get a 5-minute rebuttal if you've got anything that you'd like to say.
Thank you. Like I said, I will certainly talk with the church about the lights, if they are bleeding over onto the property, neighboring properties. Certainly, we can do something about that with shielding. That's not our intention. We want to be good neighbors, and we actually think that these signs are important to keep traffic at a minimum on the property and on Hickory Road, because it will quickly allow people to see where they need to go and then make that determination instead of missing their exit or missing their turn and then going back and forth on Hickory to turn around and come back and then get to where they need to go. So like I said, although the lights are not part of the request, I certainly understand her concerns, and we will work with them to address any other concerns they have regarding the lighting.
And these signs will not be,
They are not illuminated.
okay. Okay, you guys got anything? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
You guys got any discussion, or I'll take a motion?
May I add something for staff before you entertain a motion? Okay, so if you think meet the requirements of the ordinance denial, if you ultimately decide that to make a motion to grant the approval of the variance, what I'd recommend is, in light of the concerns heard, is that the signs be limited, because we advertised it as 3 freestanding signs, limit the signs to 6 square feet in area, 4 feet in height, and non-illuminated. So that way it isn't for the maximum extent of what would be allowed for freestanding signs. It's not a compromise, it's just clarifies what their request is.
And then if they did want to put lights on them later, they'd have to come back and ask for a secondary variance to that, correct?
Well, because and Farial, please jump in if you need to, but what the request is, without coming to you, without pulling a building permit, they could have a 4-foot high sign, 4 square feet in area. They're asking for 4 foot in height, 6 square feet in area. So making sure to limit it to the 6 square feet as requested. That's if you all, ultimately decide to move forward with a recommendation, or not recommendation, an approval. But again, it's ultimately up to you what you decide.
I have one more clarification from staff. In your conditions, you say an approval of the request is void unless a minor subdivision is filed within 6 months of the grant of the variance. What's the purpose of that?
That is a typo.
It should have read an ILP is issued or a subdivision is filed within 6 months. Apologize for that.
Frankly, for me, it's a safety issue. I know of a friend that on that stretch of road, they had a car pull out, did not signal, pulled back in as they were going around and sideswiped them because they were basically unaware of where to go inside of, and I don't know if it was this particular church, I just know it was that stretch of road. But properly identifying ins and outs of as identified as a church of this size is very helpful. I struggle with, are we biasing our opinion because it's designated as a church versus whether we do this as a business? Is it the same safety issue as a business, though? I would say so. While I appreciate the concerns of the neighbors, that's not what we're being asked to address about right now. So I would personally, unless there's other comments being made, I would make a motion to approve the variance as requested to 6 foot square, 4 foot tall, freestanding signs, 3 only.
Non-illuminated.
Non-illuminated, and subject to the conditions as imposed by staff in their comments.
Donnie Ritzma, I will second. Joe, I agree with what you just said about the safety, and I would concur also with the staff report. So I would second.
Just
that
to
approval.
clarify, the limitations you said about the size, the lighting, et cetera, those are conditions on the approval, correct?
Sure, whatever it needs to read for your jurisdictional prudence.
Yes.
And I'll still second.
Okay.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance with the condition that the signs be 6 square foot in area, 4 foot tall in height, non-illuminated, and subject to the conditions of staff's report, and will issue written findings of the facts.
Petition number 2, location 16918 Layton Road. Owner Kent and Sarah Anthony. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow for a minimum lot area of 1.7 acres where 20 would be required for a lot 1 of a proposed 1 lot and 1 outlet minor subdivision. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Good afternoon. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner's property is found here. It's located in the A agricultural district. It is a slightly less than 20-acre piece of property, similar to those typically found on the south part of the county. What they're looking to do today is to split the house. As you can see there, it's kind of naturally separated by that tree line from the rest of the property, just to divide the two uses of the property, residential and agricultural. Again, like I said, it's a pretty typical farmhouse piece of property. You have the house as well as the yard surrounded by the farmland. This is Layton Road, again, located in, I believe, the southeast part of the county, pretty agricultural in nature. Here's a site plan submitted by Terry. Shows the proposed 1 lot, 1 outlot split. Leaves 1.7 acres for the residential use, and approximately 17.8 acres will be placed into an unbuildable outlot. That acreage being less than 20 acres means that if there is ever a proposal to build on that lot in the future, they would have to come back to the Area Board of Zoning Appeals for approval of that. Turning to our state law criteria, staff does not feel that the petition will be injurious to the public. Again, that protection of the outlot ensures that there will be no further density in the agricultural district without your approval. The use and value of the area adjacent will not be affected. There's no construction. Nothing's changing with regards to the use. They're just separating the residential and the agricultural uses that already exist on the property. And then finally, the strict application of the terms of this chapter, it could result in practical difficulty. Granting the variance allows the petitioner additional flexibility in how to sell the property or the use of the property in the future. The unbuildable outlot protection does ensure that that lot will continue to be farmed in the future and thereby preserve the character of the agricultural community. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions? Nope. All right, Terry?
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue here in South Bend. Carl took all the wind out of my presentation. He summed it up perfectly. We're separating the residential corner of the parcel away from the agriculturally tilled ground, and the variance is to allow that to be a 1.7 acre parcel for the home site, and the balance will become an outlot to preserve that agricultural integrity. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
In going through some of the notes there, it was noted that the 14-foot setback is not required because it's only required 8 foot with the new update?
Yeah, so if you remember a couple months ago, we passed a text update. One of the things we cleaned up was for those smaller agricultural parcels. So parcels in the A district that are less than 2 acres, they don't have to meet that 30-foot setback. That's typical for the ag district because oftentimes those parcels aren't agricultural use, they're more residential use. So we brought that in line with the residential setback, which is 8 feet. So that even though it's 14 foot rear setback, It's only required to be 8
Be
now.
8, right?
Yeah.
So we really
Yep.
need the one variance is what it boils down
Yep,
to.
it's just a lot area variance today.
Correct, Mr. Velman. And also, they're not on a permanent foundation. They could be easily slid whatever was necessary.
What's going to happen to the outlot? It's going to maintain the family? They're going to sell it to a neighboring farmer? Do you have any idea?
I don't know right now. They're just planning ahead right now.
Understood.
Anybody else?
I want to know what happened to the .7 acres that's missing from the 20.
It's the part of the right-of-way dedication that'll be taking place as we go through the subdivision process.
So it's all because of the road,
Yep.
and in turn, who's paying the ditch assessment?
You. Yeah, you are. We're billing you directly. All right, anybody else got anything? No? All right, thanks, Terry. We'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
Sorry, I don't want to speak in favor. I just have questions. So I would guess I would be opposed.
Okay, well, give me 1 second and then we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom? See none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
That would be me.
Yeah, I need your name and address, please, and then you got 5 minutes.
Okay, Candy Rasty, and my address is 16751 Layton Road. We own property across the street from where this is being proposed, just a little farther down. There were 3 of us that had to have 20 acres to build a house on, which we all complied with. You know, it'd be great. My kids would love to build a home out here, but they can't do that because you have to have the 20 acres to build on. So in my opinion, can I in turn go ahead and sell 18 acres? I mean, if I have my property done the same way here, it seems like I could have an 18-acre lot separate from 2 acres, and then I could buy 2 acres from my brother-in-law next door who did the same thing, and then I'd have another 20-acre lot. And so I'm just trying to figure out how he can do this, but then none of us can do something similar to where we could get additional 20-acre lots for our children to build.
So I would advise you to call the office. I'd advise you to call the office and talk to somebody there, and they could go over your options and/or what you can and can't do in a little more depth.
Well, they basically told me I have to have 20 acres, and that's my only option. I mean, unless I'm calling the wrong number, is there a different number that I could call?
Well, do you want to clarify for her what an outlot is?
Yes.
That's what I was going to do.
So ma'am, just a clarification, so yes, they are separating out 1.7 acres to create the house, and then the other 18 acres is being designated as an outlot, which does not allow a building to be built onto it without coming back again to ask for permission to do that, which may or may not be granted in the future, if I'm not speaking out of turn, so yes. So what they're asking for does not result in another buildable lot, it just creates it that nothing can be built onto it, but it can be sold as farmland still, basically.
And so if I had land, let's say it's an outlot now, and then 2 years down the road, I buy 2 acres adjoining that to make it 20 acres, would that get approved?
Ma'am, we can't provide you with
That I don't
advice or
know.
predictions on how a hypothetical property would be treated. It could have different pieces that are different. It's just a hypothetical situation that we can't really opine on here.
Okay, but if I came to the zoning board and did this exact same thing that Kent and Sarah are doing, I should get approved if they get approved.
We can't say that for certain one way or the other without seeing the petition.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got anything else, or I'll take a motion.
Tom Byers, I move for approval in accordance with the staff report and the staff recommendations.
Donnie Ritzma, I'll second.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Thank you.
There wasn't really anything to rebut, though.
Thank you.
Her complaint was as well, can I do this too?
Petition number 3, location, unaddressed, 47 plus or minus acre parcel on the south side of Adams Road, west and adjacent to 10380 Adams Road. Owner David W. Calhoun. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.107, sub C1, to allow a front yard setback of 25 feet where a minimum of 35 feet is required for all lots in a proposed 56-lot subdivision. Variance number 2 from section 154.004, the requirement that all lots have frontage on a dedicated, accepted, and improved public road to allow a residential subdivision with private streets. Zoning, R Single Family District, County.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So these are 2 variances related to a proposed 56-lot subdivision on the south side of Adams Road. It's 47 plus acres shown here. The first variance is to allow a 25-foot front setback where 35 feet is required. Staff recommends approval of this variance. We've had numerous other residential subdivisions that have sought this variance. It's been granted, and they've developed with a consistent 25-foot front setback throughout. As long as it's consistent, it establishes a coordinated neighborhood character. It's not as though it's being granted for one lot within a subdivision to be closer to the road. In these cases, we do support the variance, but they are also seeking a variance to allow private streets as opposed to dedicated public right-of-way, which are typically required to create buildable residential lots. In this case, staff recommends denial. It's not really so much an issue of getting them designed and constructed correctly in the first place, correctly meaning per county standards, to ensure, safety, and, yeah, anyway. The issue is not with the initial development, because we do have provisions in the subdivision ordinance that require private streets to still be created per county standards, and the county engineer will not grant primary or secondary approval of the subdivision until this has happened. The issue we have is there's nothing to really completely guarantee the ongoing maintenance of these streets. So it's at first the developer's responsibility, and once they step aside, they'll generally place that in the hands of a homeowners association, which from the beginning is probably well-intentioned, well-funded, but as, years, decades go on, there's nothing to really confirm that it won't fold at some point or be underfunded, that sort of thing. And when I talk about maintenance, it's everything from fixing potholes, plowing snow, just ensuring that the streets can continue to safely provide access to the homeowners within the subdivision. So given that private streets don't allow us to ensure this ongoing and necessary maintenance, it'll often fall on the county to step in and do that when we might not have funds available or set aside for that particular purpose because it's additional street right-of-way that we were not planning on taking on. This is what the site currently looks like. And this is the proposed subdivision here. It would have access from Adams Road. I believe that if the private street variance is successful, they would want to actually gate that entrance to Adams. Turning to the state law criteria for the front setback variance, allowing the primary structures to be built 10 feet closer to the public right-of-way will have no impact on public health, morals, or general welfare, and it's sufficiently back from the street that it won't have any impact on public safety. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. This subdivision is not closely tied into any previous subdivision that was developed at a 35-foot setback, so there's no clash in neighborhood character there to be concerned about. And we do find that the strict applications of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, in that they would prevent the developer from creating a desirable residential product that really doesn't have any adverse impact on the public or the surrounding vicinity in any way. So staff does recommend that the 25-foot setback variance be granted. Turning to the private streets, we recommend denial of the private streets. We feel that the approval could be injurious to health, safety, and general welfare of the community. Again, we can't guarantee the ongoing maintenance of these streets to ensure that they are safe and continue to provide safe access to the future homeowners. Turning to the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, we find that the areas that have not been developed, particularly to the west, that could be prime for residential development, if they were able to tie into this subdivision, creating a coordinated access system of streets, we feel like by doing private streets, which we can't tie into with future public right-of-way, it could affect the development potential of this area and future use. Even if it is developed, it'll be harder for the residents to get onto the existing street system. And turning to the strict application of the terms of this chapter, we see that there are no practical difficulty in providing public streets, as this is a requirement of the zoning ordinance that virtually all subdivisions comply with without any issues. We do have a note from the county engineer stating that he is generally opposed to the use of private streets, and he wants to remind everyone that if it is a private street, the county really does no sort of maintenance, including plowing it, maintaining drainage, filling potholes, or repaving. That all becomes the responsibility of the private entity that's charged with the ongoing maintenance of the streets. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are we gonna lump these together, or?
No, we're gonna do them separate.
So we're gonna discuss all of it now, or just one? Not trying to hurt staff's feelings,
Never.
but I can think of a lot of private street subdivisions that are, maintained by the HOA. I'm curious if you guys can cite specific examples of where, because the ones that come to mind that didn't get top coat or didn't get finished properly, were actually ones that were supposed to be dedicated county streets, and then the recession happened and just everything came to a screeching halt. So, I mean, if they're private and they've got to be done to county standards and they've got to be bonded to get that work done, I guess I don't understand why staff is worried about what may or may not happen 15 and 20, 25 years from now.
That's kind of our job sometimes.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, to look at the growth and development of the community over decades, not over the next year. And in regards to your question about specific instances, we have consulted our county engineer. I believe that there were 2 subdivisions, one where drainage was not built correctly, and the residents have come to the county asking for assistance with making the subdivision right. It's not just a matter of whether you gate it, it's platted as a private street. So it goes into our system as a private street. The subdivision will show it being a private street.
Okay.
And then there's oftentimes, like Sean had alluded to.
Well, let's back up. Is the county going to pay for all that drainage fixage? Because I doubt that they are. Just because people asked, I mean, they had the option of not living there, right? I guess I'm just trying to flush out whether it's really the county's problem or not. And in my estimation, it's not. Because they're private streets, they weren't done right, so the as-bills weren't followed up on or whatever, right?
It still remains the county's problem. I mean, at the end of the day, if the subdivision was approved, it's a buildable lot in a subdivision. Someone can continue to live there. So it falls on the county ultimately.
Donnie, you got anyone? Tom?
I had a quick question. So the 35-foot setback off of the street is meant to accomplish what in the eyes of the ordinance?
At 35 feet, I mean, it's really just to establish a certain aesthetic that you see in suburban county development. We did have some discussion about actually amending the zoning ordinance to allow 25 feet in certain instances by right, but there was some concern that that would result in these, homes here and there that aren't consistent with the front setback of the area. So that's kind of why we said just allow that to go through as a variance if it's appropriate.
Going back to the question, is it the county's responsibility if on the private streets and the drainage? Of course it's not. But when the problem develops, you're going to have 56 homeowners. They're going to sit there and harangue and complain constantly to county government. Not that county government is immune to listening to complaints and people complaining about things, but I think the point the staff is trying to make is that it's never the first time homeowner. It's the third and fourth one down the road let's be honest about this. Some people sometimes have no idea what they're getting into when they buy a home.
Well, shouldn't that be just, never mind.
No,
This should be disclosed at the closing, so that's a different subject.
No, I agree with
Not
you,
even a
but then when you
realtor,
look at that stack of papers at the closing and all the restrictions, sometimes those details don't get paid attention to. So, no, it's not the county's responsibility, but I think we have an obligation to make sure that it doesn't become that the county doesn't become the solution dealing with the private streets. I don't have a particular problem with the setbacks and the variance from that standpoint, but I do have a problem, particularly when you get into the retention ponds, then they start affecting the road, and then you've got nothing but a mess on your hands. So I'm kind of leaning with the staff on the private road issue. The setbacks I don't have a particular problem with.
You guys got anything else?
No, sir.
Name and address in 10 minutes, please.
Chris Godlewski, Aben Marsh, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana.
Dustin Brown, 11511 Grayson Allen Drive, Granger, Indiana.
Yep. So let me address the the front setback first. The 25, the proposed home, the lots are slightly larger than your typical in a suburban development, and the home, as he can probably dictate or to tell you a little more, are going to be a little larger, very high-end homes, 3-car garages, so that building footprint is, we're trying to maximize that. And yes, we would have a consistent 25-foot setback, and thank you for the staff report on that positive. If you look at the 50-foot right-of-way and a 25-foot setback, you have a 100-foot clear zone on a residential street that's a closed loop. So reducing it by 10 feet is really not going to make an impact to the neighborhood in a negative way. There's plenty of clear zone and plenty of area for utilities, road, drainage, and so forth. With the private road, and Dustin can allude to that more, our main focus on this is public safety, and that is a legitimate land use concern. If that front gate is gated, that allows for even safer movement of, people and cars in the subdivision. And also it adds security. So, and that's security for not just the subdivision, but the neighborhood in a whole. And then I think another key consideration you need to understand is, yes, this will be built to a public standard. And the entrance onto that road, it'll be an urban drain. So you're going to look at this development as built as a typical subdivision, except you have a gate at the front, adding a little more safety value to this neighborhood that will definitely complement this area and this region very well. If you want to, Dustin, if you want to talk about the type of home and what the atmosphere you're trying to create, what requests you get from your clients with regards to the private streets.
Thank you guys for your time. So obviously, we've worked with this team in county, and they've been very gracious, been great to work with, and you guys have as well through the years. This is our third residential neighborhood in about 5 years. So we do have a track record that the staff can speak of and speak to, where we're working with county very well. We have not had any issues, no complaints, no issues of things being taken care of. So as far as the 25-foot setback, obviously the other two neighborhoods that we did also had 25-foot setbacks. The reason why we want them as a builder and developer is because with the back and forth about the septic and the reserve area and the larger houses being built nowadays, it just gives them more workable room on the lot. That's the number one thing, so I think that one's pretty easy. As far as the gated neighborhood, I know that staff, before they even hear any details, have always been against it, because we've had this conversation before with them. And obviously, I look at it as a couple things. We have a track record. The homes that we're building are $1 to $3 million homes. The number one complaint that we have as a builder and developer is we continually, especially in this area, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can look back, we've had many police chases, calls, people coming in from Elkhart and from Michigan, where we are having vandalism and theft in this part of the county nonstop with new construction, period. So it's a huge pain from that standpoint, from a builder-developer side. From a homeowner side, the number one thing of all the neighborhoods that we've built or even built in, they all want to get together and try and have gated roads, because they just cannot stand the constant traffic of people pulling in, most of them just being probably nosy neighbors. It's a new development, new home, nicer homes, they want to see it. So it's obviously been done. It's obviously been successful. It's in the handbook as something that we can be petitioned for. The number one pushback that we got from staff was, it's not going to be built to county standards because it's a private road. And then if we have to take it over, we're dealing with a problem. I 100% agree with that statement, and I understand where they're coming from. But it's been done, and it's been successful. And so what I said in rebuttal to that is, if you guys are willing to have an open mind here, I think it's pretty easy. We build everything to county standard in all aspects, retention, roads, otherwise. That way, county engineering is 100% happy. And I've talked to county engineering. They, about this specifically. Also, when it comes to the gate, we write into the HOA that if the HOA is unsuccessful in any time period of the HOA, the gates are removed, thus opening the neighborhood to county standard roads, everything exactly the same. Whether you guys have taken over neighborhoods or not, which you've taken over one of ours, there's a lot of things that we are held, working with Merrill, you know, from the county side, that we're held to on keeping things clean, when we turn things over, protecting all of the drainage, things like that. So, you know, there's a legitimate, I think, proposal here that I would just like to be considered instead of just being shot down from the start, which is kind of the feel that we got from the very first meeting with staff, where it's not even really being considered, when we're saying, hey, we'll give and understand what you're saying, but you also need to give and understand what we're saying. Let's find a common ground. We'll write it in a legal document of the HOA that if it is not held and successful, the gates are off and it's open, meeting all criteria of a public road. So I don't understand the rub here of why this is a bad thing. We're trying to create a community that doesn't really exist outside of Shamrock Hills in this area, where you have nice homes, gated neighborhood, and Shamrock is a great example of something that does work. You know, it can work 100%. It's all about how you manage this. I think what's frustrating though, and I won't name names, you guys can figure out who it is, there's a builder that just got private roads in a gated neighborhood. And the way he got it was doing whatever he wanted, not building the roads correctly. And the county said, oh, well, you guys go ahead and have gates then. Well, should we do the same thing? How does that work? You know, so that's what I would say. Just have a legitimate conversation about it.
So I got a question. Who, if you write it into your HOA, right? The HOA fails, who is then going to pay to have the gate removed?
We can write it as the HOA.
Well, I understand, but if the HOA fails, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Abba, Marshall, and I have discussed that. So we could even have an escrow account if we wanted to, set aside, that holds, I mean, removing gates, you're not removing anything with the road per se. You're not changing an island where you've got landscaping. We're just literally removing the gates. You know, we could put in there if you wanted to make sure that you're safe and that we're safe and everybody's happy. We're willing to work with you guys on doing the right thing and doing it the right way. If we set aside an escrow account, we can talk to the gate company here locally. We use 4T. We can talk to them and say, hey, how much would it be to remove the gates? They say $2,000, $2,500. We throw an escrow account, it sits there and doesn't get touched. We're fine with that too.
I guess I need a clarification. So to be a gated community, does the road have to not be public then? Is that how this works?
I would have to talk with the county engineer, but to put a gate on a public road, they would need an encroachment agreement and an indemnification agreement with the Board of Commissioners, because if someone were to hit it, and we would be liable. But I have not talked to Sky, so this is my answer, and I would need to confirm with him. But allowing a gate to be placed on a public road could open a floodgate of future requests. I don't know that that's a precedent that he would like to set.
So in order to not have it be a public road, does it require a gate?
No. It could be a private road without a gate.
But if they want to have a gate, it has to be.
It has to be private. So one doesn't have to get the other, but the one does have to get the other.
I'm not aware of any gates that are placed in public rights of way. Sean, I don't know when you're.
Deny access to a public right of way.
Yeah, that would seem counterintuitive.
Something I would recommend.
And
I just wanted to understand what the ordinance said, because, yeah, because while
So I would say yes, the ability to have a gate is premised on there being private roads.
because you can't block off a public road.
Right.
That would make sense. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think that we're coming to ask for a public road. We're just saying that in order to do it and help, which is gonna cost us a lot more money, let's just be honest, to build it to a public standard versus a private standard, it costs us a lot more money. We're doing that as an olive branch to say, hey, we'll do it the right way so that if in turn you ever have to take this over, it meets all of your criteria.
Is there different criteria for public versus private roads in the ordinance or in the building code?
If you have to go through a subdivision, which this will have to go through, all private roads need to be built to public standards, so there aren't separate standards for
Okay,
the two.
and there is a provision for that in the ordinance for private roads?
Correct.
And is there a provision for gates?
There is no provision related to gates that I'm aware of. There's nothing in the subdivision ordinance or zoning ordinance, it's all.
Okay, so let me ask it a different way. If, So can somebody do private roads by right?
No.
So that's, in essence, what they're asking for.
Correct.
The fact that they want to gate it is sort of
That's-
irrelevant,
Correct.
Correct.
right? If
Yes.
they're allowed the private roads,
Yes.
which there is a provision for in the ordinance,
The variance that's technically in front of you isn't a variance to allow private roads, it's a variance to allow lot frontage.
well, what's number 2?
All lots have frontage on a dedicated, accepted, and improved public road. These will not.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to clarify because.
So it's almost like we're making this about private streets and that we don't like that. But what it's really about is whether they're allowed to have lots with frontage on non-public streets.
No. There's a development standard in the zoning ordinance that states that all buildable residential lots must have frontage on an improved public road. So it's like any other variance.
Okay, so, but we're making it about, forgive me, but it sounds like we're making it more about the gate and whether we should allow private roads or not, and that's not the case here. What we're really voting on is whether or not we're gonna allow or not lots to be on a non-public, dedicated, accepted, improved public road, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Given that private roads is the viable alternative to that, yes.
Yeah, right, I mean, but it's not like that's not allowed. Okay.
Well, from the other. They're doing this, I mean, you can do it by variance. You can't get a private road any other way.
I believe what Mr. Roush is talking about is if this was a development in which there were both private streets and the lots also themselves had frontage on a public road, like on a different side, we wouldn't care about the private streets existing then.
Yeah.
As long as they were built to the county standards. It's the lack of the public street frontage at all that is the issue here.
Right. Understood.
May I? Yeah. Chris, you made some reference to the urban drain. And I'm asking just because I'm not familiar with the St. Joe County requirements. I'm looking at 2 retention ponds.
Yeah.
Are those going to be under the control of the HOA, or are they under the?
And from our preliminary meeting with the engineer, this was just understood that with the retention, it would be part of the urban drain, which the urban drain is like any other subdivision where it's going to be, basically each lot owner pays into a maintenance fund so that the storm retention is maintained.
Okay, so we're going to look at potentially looking at a subdivision where the drainage is the responsibility of the county, but the roads are the responsibility of the HOA, and if there's a retention pond that causes an impact on the road, who takes care of that? That might be a hypothetical question.
Well, I don't think it is, right? Because my question was gonna be is, has Sky seen this? He has? And, sorry, were you gonna say something?
Yes, Sky's seen it.
Okay, so, what, and this drainage that's in here right now is sufficient? Because this seems awful small.
We have an outlet, a granted outlet by the neighbor to the east to go to the ditch. So yeah, it is designed to carry the appropriate stormwater it needs to for this size development.
And also to answer your question, same thing, because we have that outlet on the retention, then obviously backing up or causing further issue to roads, stuff like that, should be basically not an issue at that point.
I got nothing.
I think I'm following a little bit on Tom's lines of what happens 50 years down the road, and the HOA is defunct and there's no ability for them to satisfy the needs of the road upkeep and all that kind of stuff, then it becomes the county's issues. I mean, because it will. And there's, beyond just subdivisions, there's other much, quite a few documented things on the southwest side of South Bend of where houses were built when things were in place when they were built, but when those things went away, it affected water table levels and all kinds of stuff that became the city's issue or the county's issue and stuff like that. And that's what I fear is, like, I understand what you said about the escrow side of things. That's great for the gate, but is there an escrow to be set aside for a future fund for all of that that would mitigate any down the line? Because I think staff alluded to it earlier is, okay, we're not worried about next week or next year because we know you'll be here at that time. In 50 or 75 or 100 years, maybe Legacy will, but maybe they won't as well too, to be able to maintain that opportunity. So, or the HOA or the homeowners. So that's what I'm looking at as well too, is that long-term impact of the whole community as well too.
Just as a reminder, we haven't done the public hearing yet, so.
I understand.
I'm asking questions. There's a question there somewhere.
And that's the thing, we asked them questions, so.
So I guess how does it work, or have you guys looked into how it works on the existing neighborhoods where this does work and has been around for 30, 40 years? Because they exist.
Yeah, I'm not aware of them. I know where they're at, but I don't know how they make that work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, like I said, if it's here and written as an option that we can ask for, whether it's public roads or private roads, we don't mind either way. We're just trying to do the right thing and help in saying that we would build it to a public standard to make sure that everybody's happy with that. But it just seems like through the years, because this is not our first conversation about this, that it's really just never been, basically they're just always kind of against it from day one. That's it, shut it down. You know what I mean? So why is the provision still even a possibility?
Well, the thing is go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize. We will have circumstances where it might be appropriate for a lot to be developed without frontage if there's a special circumstance that warrants it, without we have applied this not necessarily to the development of an entire subdivision, but a single one-off lot that might be accessed via an easement, or for whatever reason was developed prior to the ordinance and is non-conforming and is expanding or whatever.
Plus, as a development standard, I'm not sure that the county would have the ability to prevent somebody from asking for a variance from the development standard, given that the state says that's what the BZA is here for, is to hear requests for variances from development standards. I don't think the county could go in and put in their ordinance, but not this one.
All right, you guys got anything else? No, sir. No? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
Hello.
You're speaking in favor of this petition?
Against. I am.
You are, I'm sorry?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can I get your name and address, please? And you got 5 minutes.
Sure. Sarah Cotis, 50570 Bear Claw Court. I live in Partridge Woods. It's across the street, the subdivision across the street, directly to the north. I wasn't planning on speaking, so I hope I do an okay job of kind of communicating my thoughts. As far as the setback, I don't have an issue with it. I agree with kind of what was discussed with allowing a builder more, or a potential new builder more options in regarding the placement of their home, especially if they wanted to build full or outbuildings with the required septic, if I'm understanding all of that correctly. And then regarding the gate and the public versus private roadways, my husband and I were actually looking at property just last week in Elkhart County in a subdivision called Westgate. It's in a Granger address though. And so I understand the St. Joe versus Elkhart. However, what really appealed to us was that it was just what they're seeking. It was a gated, privately owned roadway where the HOA members would have to buy into it and to maintain it for maintenance of the roadway as well as snow removal. I echo all of the kind of reasoning why. I like the private access nature of it. And with all due respect to the county, I would rather have control as a homeowner over the ability to maintain the roadways. Like I started the call with saying, we live in Partridge Woods. As a homeowner, we have made countless calls and requests to the county to improve our roadways and the terrible condition that they are in. And I wish we had the power as homeowners to issue special assessments and whatnot to maintain the roads so that kids, because we don't have sidewalks, could ride bikes, use scooters, rollerblade, whatnot, on a smooth, safe, piece of road versus the current condition that our roads in our subdivision are in. Regarding the drainage issues, again, I'm not a builder, but I would hope that, like, as part of the building process, there would be inspections along the way that would certify that the drains were built in accordance with requirements. And then as far as if the county had to get involved, again, I'm not certain on any of this, but I would think that if the county stepped in to help, wouldn't they just bill back to the HOA and require that bill to be paid? So thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak in favor of this petition? He's against? All right. All right. Well, is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Any on Zoom?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
All right. Against this petition?
Yes.
All right. I need your name and address, please, and you got 5 minutes.
My name is Emily Troush, and I'm at 10521 Fawnwoods Court. I'm also in the Partridge Woods subdivision directly across the Adams Road property. I might just be a little bit behind, only now just recently finding out there's a proposed subdivision being built on that property. But I did want to bring up some concerns that a lot of us in the community do have. I don't think it's any secret that in this part of Granger, the water table is extremely shallow and of poor quality. There's a ton of high nitrates. A study was done back in 2013. There's high levels of medications such as antibiotics that were measured in the water. And again, the ongoing issue of high nitrates. And I want to ask, has it been considered either by the county or the developer what the actual safety impacts would be with the drinking water in the surrounding communities if a new subdivision is built here? And I know you guys have been talking about safety with the roads and such, but has any conversation been had about what's going to happen with the quality of water? We're going to be putting a lot more septic tanks in a consolidated area, and that, of course, is going to continue to increase the level of nitrates. I think, if this land has already been sold to a developer, I think a lot of us would prefer a residential type subdivision being built versus a commercial one. But I just want to hear if there's anything being done about that. And then, if there are issues with the drinking water, who then does take responsibility for that? And I'm hoping maybe somebody here could speak on that today.
Well, the petitioner will have a 5-minute rebuttal that he'll be able to answer those questions on. So that'll be after the public comment is done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak against this petition on Zoom?
I would.
All right, name and address in 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name's Andrea Hartstein. I live at 50804 Partridge Woods Drive. I'm across the street. I'm also serving as the Harris Township historian. So I have I'm not entirely sure if I think my comments might be more against, and that's why I wanted to speak at this time. But I want to echo what Emily said about the water levels, and just for a little bit of perspective, I live across the street in the neighborhood. I live on Partridge Woods Drive with the retention pond behind my house. I am probably a third or fourth homeowner to own this house. They never mentioned anything that no one brought it to our attention what the water levels were going to be like when it rains really hard. in the fall and in the spring. And so I know from experience for myself, we are constantly, our house is, it's always flooded. We always have water well into our yard. And because everyone's water all drains into a drain right in front of our house. And so we've had to repair sinkholes and all of that to our own, out of our own pocket. And so whatever that is to, however that might help in consideration. But the other thought is, they talked about it not being, not having an aesthetic or not having anything to be aesthetically pleasing with. I mean, we would love to hope that there might be consideration for, there being a similar aesthetic look to what we have across the street already. But then another thought too is probably one of my bigger concerns, after having studied our township for as long as I have, our community has always fought against being a town. Like we're not incorporated because we don't want to be a city. We don't want that. And we've wanted to keep our rural, our rural feel. And that's going by the wayside the further we go. My biggest concern is because we are not incorporated, I have big concerns on infrastructure. Can we handle as many, if we already have 30,000 people that are living in the area, and we don't have anyone to provide us, sewage and lights and sidewalks and all of those things, because we don't want that, because we want to stay rural. But then as more of that infrastructure is being, like, as things are being built without proper, I'm not entirely sure what proper infrastructure would be. I just imagine as a homeowner, like, are our roads going to be, widened? The more people that are coming into our community are, what does that look like? And how do those historical aspects of our community affect what you guys are deciding today? And that was all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys get a 5-minute rebuttal.
Appreciate those comments. I think the first comment, you could see that there is an appetite for developments like this, and there is a safety component that we demonstrated, and a neighbor, a future owner of a lot in here, said that that's very relevant when you have something that's gated and more restricted. With regards to the persons against, with regards to the health standard, water and septic, separation distance between wells and septic in all directions, that they can't be closer than the 50 feet. With regards to either the front access or stormwater design, those will all pass review during the subdivision process and meet the standard and be designed as such. So there's no thought or consideration that it would be anything different or anything substandard. So if you want to talk about maybe the aesthetics of what the subdivision might look like compared to the neighborhood?
Sure. Yeah, so back to the comments, I mean, I appreciate that. I think everybody that has kids, especially me, I've got twin boys that are always outside playing in the road and having fun. So, keeping nice roads, I think, is definitely important. Obviously, it costs the county a considerable amount of money to continually repair roads. So I'm sure the squeaky wheel gets the grease is kind of the saying. I'm sure that that's probably true in a lot of these instances. So they will go to things that have really bad issues and just kind of put things off as it goes. And I understand why, and I get that, understand that. But yeah, that's definitely something that we hear as we continually build houses and talk to clients. There is no question that by far, I would say 75% of people are asking us and wanting gated neighborhoods. We were a part of Black Hawk that also built some houses out there in gated neighborhoods. We've been a part of some Michigan neighborhoods recently that just did some in Niles. These are hot neighborhoods that sell very quickly. This helps the area. It helps the type of home, the type of homeowner that's going to go in there. So I think it is very important. As far as the aesthetic, though, we're trying to do something that's pretty unique and different. We don't have anything that's got a really nice grand entrance. So we're trying to do something that has a really nice grand entrance with stone walls on both sides. Obviously, like I said, 1 to 3 million is kind of the price range that we're shooting to build these homes in, which is our type of clientele, which is what we build every year, all the time. So that's kind of our bread and butter. As far as the water quality, it's interesting that she mentioned that. So we've done a lot of developing and building for over 20 years now. And what we actually realize is when you get into some of these fields, you find higher nitrates than when you are developing areas that are wooded. I don't know why, but it's almost like the trees clean the water. So we just did brownstone, which is in Granger as well. It was 100% wooded. Actually, when we tested the water, they said it was the best water they've seen in Granger, and it's literally less than a mile from Partridge Woods. So there are just areas where you have pockets of good water and bad water. You don't know what you're going to hit till you get in it. My assumption would be as soon as we get into this, which is going to be a field that has had fertilizer for a lot of years, they're going to have high nitrates. We automatically, in our houses that we build, they all have RO units. So that's just something that we do pretty much as a standard. So that automatically takes nitrates. It's the only thing that takes nitrates out of water. So that is one thing that we're definitely following. As he said, septic and wells, all those things have come a long way over the years with filters and septic systems, distances between systems and between wells, no overlap of 100 feet. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that has helped, I think, considerably. From 10 years ago, we didn't have all that. So that's definitely helping septics fail less, have less issues. They have to be maintained because if you don't, the filter and the system doesn't work. So there's a lot of that stuff that's a good positive to address those two immediate concerns. But I would just say in closing, I appreciate your guys' time and I appreciate staff. Hopefully I wasn't too hard on you guys. It wasn't by intention. But I think at the end of the day, I think we have proven with our track record, with what we have done, which is now, like I said, 3 neighborhoods. Now we're going on to 3 different commercial developments, all within St. Joseph County. So we have been here, we're not going anywhere. We've done this before, this isn't our first rodeo before. I think we've clearly demonstrated that we have met the requirements to petition this correctly and do it the right way and not try and do something subpar and then get a gate because I just do whatever I want. And that's kind of what we're hoping here is to bring it to you. So appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks. All right, you guys got anything else you want to discuss? Again, let's do these separately.
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Is the land that this subdivision is going to be going on, looks like it's a tillable land, is that still an active farmland? And if so, how does that fare with the comprehensive plan of removing a farmland?
It appears that it has been until very recently. However, it's been zoned our single family since at least 2005. So Granger is always an area that the current 2002 comp plan is targeted for residential growth. So I would say that a residential subdivision at this location is consistent with the current comprehensive plan.
And then how does that added residential growth then just continue to exacerbate the issues that are occurred in Granger with allowing well and septic? Because this sounds like this site, and I guess that's the question for the developer or not, but you're going to be providing private well and septic. So it's not going to be served by public utilities, correct? So I guess the question is that, or maybe not, it's a question, the comment for us is just that just continues to exacerbate that issue that Granger has.
So, to go along those lines,
The problem is I don't think we can use that as basis and weigh it
right, I was
against.
gonna go
So,
because
I understand that,
I think
but
the
I still-
subdivision's allowable, yeah, it's just now they're asking for the setback and everything else, so, yeah.
Everything about my job screams against this.
Understood. I do have one clarification. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you have anything else?
I guess the last thing is development standards, maybe not in the current zoning ordinance, but are there not development standards to allow sidewalk and trail connectivity?
Currently, that's not something that's required.
Dang it.
Within subdivisions.
Within the subdivision.
We have a provision that's like, if it's there, you have to connect to it.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Correct.
All right, Joe, I'm done.
I just had Mr. Brown, offer to put $2,500 to an escrow for any future opportunities that may occur if the HOA does go defunct. Is that something that we can put in there as a condition of the approval is a requirement of an escrow account for that amount because he said he would be willing to do that?
I feel like I'm speaking for Sky a lot today, and I don't want to do that, but I don't think the concern is the money that it'll take to rip out the gate, right? It's if there were larger concerns with the development.
I don't have large concerns about the development per se. I have large concerns about the future of the development, of what happens in that 50-year time frame when, by all means, these are very substantial homes that are going to be probably, what I assume are going to be affluent people that can probably afford to update the roads and all that kind of stuff. But to the remonstrators, what she said, she was a third, fourth, fifth homeowner, and while it is probably in closing documents and different things of what happens or what is supposed to happen because it's a private road, we all know those things are kind of left out, no offense. You know, there are things about every home I think we buy that we wish we would have known about realistically before we bought it. And this is a very substantial thing that, hey, you're responsible for the upkeep of the roads that should be addressed in that condition. So that's a
I'm
tough
not
one.
entirely sure that that would be a commitment that we could make them make.
Okay.
The
just
statute
asking.
about commitments says that you're allowed to require commitments concerning the use or development. And I
Okay.
don't necessarily
that's
think
fine.
that
It wasn't-
requiring an escrow account would fall in that. What I would say about the proposal to put provisions in the HOA documents related to doing something like that or turning it over, if the HOA was defunct, I'm not entirely sure how that would operate, if that makes
That's
sense.
the problem.
How would it be enforced because it would be in the.
If there's no HOA to sign documents to turn something over to the county, I don't know how that would be an operative thing at that point. The board would have to
Right.
take an action to do something, and if there's nobody on the board, it can't work.
That's my fear. There's-
So even if there was an escrow
there's
account, there'd be
nothing there.
nobody to give
Right.
instructions to the escrow person to release the money.
Right.
But I guess I come back to the Shamrock Hills is what jumps out at me. And that's really what we're talking about here is a Shamrock Hills-esque type subdivision. And to my knowledge, we don't have any problems there.
Not yet.
These things that we're worried about.
Well, we could, I'm
That
gonna
was
go.
how many
I'm-
years ago that was built?
I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole. I mean, this is a severe rabbit hole, but say these 56 homeowners get a burr up their butt and say, I'm not paying for any of this anymore. The county's gonna take care of it.
Special assessment, and they
Well,
get sued
yeah,
by
they put
the
it on your
HOA.
taxes.
So there's
Like-
repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
Like in a ditch association, you have no choice. You're a member of that because that's your water collection shed. You have to pay the county tax. If they go private, they got rules in there that allows them to go to the county and collect it through the county tax if you don't pay it. And if you don't pay your taxes, you know how that
Well, I
works.
know that, yeah, that's,
Yeah, there's
So there's ways to, in an association like that,
special
to,
assessment and HOA. Barrington Estates, that's not county, that's Mishawaka, but that's.
so that's
same-
happened
same kind of
previously
thing.
then.
Happens all the time.
Okay.
If you don't pay your if you don't pay your assessment, it's just like having a condo in a multifamily building, and it needs a roof.
I get that. That, to me, that is a more of a, buyer's gonna be aware of that going into this. This is the third buyer going in. Are they always aware of different things?
Private streets are a pretty big deal, as far as
Knowledge
knowing what,
moving forward and
yeah,
in the sales
my
process.
opinion, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
All right.
All right.
got private sidewalks.
That's why I have liability insurance.
Anybody got a motion for petition or for the first variance?
Well, hold up. Brandy, what about written conditions? Do you remember, the guy near Notre Dame? Joe, hopefully you can help me here. The developer was wanting to do like 7-bedroom, single-family homes near Notre Dame.
The old
And we
nursing
were
home
in the case that
Yep.
residents wanted this written commitment, thank
not
you,
be student
not condition, commitment, written commitment that this will not be used for student housing. Okay, is there, in light of that, can we do something of a written commitment that the HOA is in agreement that they are going to be responsible for maintaining this private street and in no way that the county is going to be held responsible?
commitments can be for use or development of the property. In terms of, can we put something in the written commitment that says the county will never be responsible? I suppose that that is something we could do, practically speaking. If you end up in a situation where nobody's on the board of an HOA because everybody decided that it was a hassle and they didn't want to do it, and so a bunch of houses are left without access to public streets at all because the road falls into disrepair, the county would still end up having to do it whether there's a commitment on it or not, because they would have a whole bunch of landlocked
Randy,
homeowners.
if I may.
Okay, thank you.
Is that true, or would the individual 56 homeowners go to court with the county and a judge would decide what's gonna happen? Because for you guys to just blanket statement say, well, the county just be responsible, seems a little
What I would say
presumptuous
is
to me.
it probably would end up in court. I strongly suspect that a court would determine that there's 56 homes here with no access to a real road. If anybody has to do something
I think the court would say
about
there's
it.
56 homes that were on a known private street, and they better fix it, or it's gonna be dirt.
Who better fix it at that point, though?
The 56 homeowners, because that's how it was done in the first place. I'm not, at the risk of being argumentative, I think sometimes we jump to conclusions that may or may not be the case.
Well, that's, one, it's pure speculation,
Right.
right?
But we're speculating the absolute worst-case scenario.
Yep. Which has happened in a couple other subdivisions.
Where?
There's a subdivision that was gated and has nothing but drainage issues. There was another one that you had brought up, right? So just because, listen, I'm all for gated communities, right? I just built a house in a subdivision that I wanted gated.
Yeah, right.
So,
That's what I was thinking.
and I've done nothing but argue over this,
Right.
right?
So finish that thought.
But the problem is we're here for the county, and we're here for worst-case scenario because that's what's for the good of the county, right? So whatever is in the best interest of the county, right? Because these 56 taxpayers, for instance, if this happens, these 56 taxpayers are gonna go to the county and say, listen, I pay your wage, you work for me, you're gonna fix my street, right? And then they're gonna say, well, we're gonna stop paying taxes. Well, you know that's not gonna happen, right? So then we're gonna end up in all of this legal battle that's going on. It's gonna cost the county, they're gonna have to fix the roads, they're gonna have to pay all the legal fees, and it's gonna cost them 3 times what it would have cost them just to maintain this on a regular basis.
And we're talking about a subdivision where this happened.
Worst case scenario.
Okay. Well, this kind of goes back in my mind to the case on McKinley where a building was across the property line.
I'm trying.
Wasn't it somebody else's I mean, if there's codes in which this way is supposed to be built, and there's as-built at the end of how they were built, then I don't understand how the county's liable for anything.
No matter how we
after the
look at
fact.
this, we're looking at this as pure speculations, right? It could either never happen, or in 10 years it could happen.
Yeah, I guess to me, if there's a provision for it in the code, then why?
There's
Where
a
we are
standard,
Right.
right, and a precedence that has been set.
Right.
And I agree that this needs some major looking at, right? But the bottom line is every scenario is different. So, back to variance number 1. Does anybody have a motion for that?
Mr. Chairman, for variance number 1, the setback being reduced to 25 feet, in my opinion, is not injurious to the public around it. As long as they are maintained in this particular area, I don't see why any other subdivisions that might have been built differently would be impactful to this one. And if the opportunity here is to even keep movement from the well to septic even further away, building a larger house, which builds us a larger tax base, I'm fully in favor of those. So I would make a motion to approve variance number 1 as requested.
Lance Roush, second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Okay, number 2.
So you're sure there's nothing we can put in anything that would make in 75 years when something happens that somebody's got to pay for it in the county? There's nothing we can do in this case.
There's not one person that's going to be here that's going to be able to say that that actually happened,
That what happened?
that we put this stipulation in place.
It'll still be in the record. It'll follow every follow the deeds of every one of the houses.
That's what I was trying to get at. Lance?
Brandy, what about a deed restriction?
Again, our commitments are limited to use or development of the parcel. We could tell them that they can't build house. We could tell them they can't build a circus on it.
Can we tell them they can't drive on it unless they maintain it?
I guess we could tell them they
That's a
can't
use.
drive on it.
It's pertinent for the development.
What I was leaning towards, Brandy, was could there be verbiage attached, like it'd be the inverse of a deed restriction, but a deed restriction that says that each lot owner has 1/56th,
Responsibility?
yeah, for maintaining all the streets. Or something like that.
That would be something that they would have to contractually agree with among themselves. I don't think that it can be done under commitments. I don't.
Lance, that's what I was trying to ask too.
But that's only gonna work for the first homeowner.
No. deed
Well, if they
restriction.
do it in some kind of an easement agreement that actually gets recorded
That's forever.
between each other, that would, if it's recorded into the chain of title, and says that it runs with the land, then it would. But that's separate from what you guys do. And, I mean, you could put in there that, you could require a written commitment saying that it has to be used as a private street and maintained, but at the end of the day, if the HOA goes defunct and can't do it, you're left with a road that will fall apart.
But then it's left to the private owner, so who cares?
But realistically, it's not.
Surprises me that you say that.
Listen.
I mean, I was trying to think of like, if they could put in the HOA covenant, something like that, if there's no members of the board, then it automatically transfers, but you wouldn't even want that because the county might not want it at that point because there might be problems with it.
Well, and is there any, there's really no way we can make them put anything in the HOA.
I would
That's
agree with that. I don't know
three
that that would
steps
be a
removed.
legal thing that you could force anyway, but just trying to think creatively about it. And even with that, I'm not sure that I don't think you can do property transfers that way.
Well, the other side of that is what's enforceable and defensible as well, too.
In the gated communities that exist, are these gates, are they crash gates? We've spent a lot of time talking about roads. But if you want to talk about the efficient delivery of public services, there's a whole host of services out there people are going to need to gain access through this gate, whether it be police, fire, trash, school buses, mail. The list goes on and on.
Pretty sure there's rules on that where they have a code or a key or something, but maybe.
Yeah, there's a master code that will work on all of the
Yeah.
gate panels.
Fire Marshal Dave or whatever is pretty big on that stuff.
Well, and Technology's a wonderful thing, but technology doesn't always work at my house. Well, to get a motion out there, just so we can move down the road, Tom Byers, I'm gonna make a motion that the variance for the private roads be denied.
Donnie Ritzmel, second.
Mr. Roush?
No.
Mr. Schaefer?
No.
Mr. Veltman?
I don't know. This is an extremely tough question for me to answer because while I give the petitioner the whole benefit of the doubt that their intention of what they want to do with this property and how they want it to move forward is in good faith and they have in their mind of how this is going to go. But whatever we decide, we're deciding forever. And forever is beyond all of our lifetimes. So in the long run, if we allow this, then we are putting our full faith in the future owners of this properties are going to also maintain this as well too. Do I have that faith in humanity is the question. At this point, I'm going to say no.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Right, it can't pass.
It doesn't pass regardless. You said no.
I said no, so we don't have four. We got to have four. So,
Yeah.
Need a new motion.
which he may be for, we'll see. He hasn't voted yet.
I have not voted yet.
Well, it wouldn't matter, the motion wouldn't pass.
Did you mean?
What was your motion? Sorry.
Vote.
The motion was to deny the variance, and so
Right.
far
So
we
no.
have
So I
3
said no. I
no's
said no.
and 2 yeses.
So
So,
3 no's, 2 yeses.
so regardless of what DJ votes, the motion won't pass. Then the next motion would need to be to approve the variance.
Okay, so motion didn't pass.
You should still vote, DJ.
I am going to say no.
Okay.
And we didn't vote on a yes, we just voted on a no.
Sydney is
That was-
correct.
That was,
You
yes,
voted
that was
on
voting
the motion to deny, which
deny.
failed.
Correct.
It's like a double negative.
So now somebody needs to make a motion to approve.
Without getting into all of the
Can I-
things that
can
we
I-
discussed.
Can I make one suggestion, right? Not that I want to push this to next month. Is there a way that we could ask for the HOA covenants and restrictions that could suffice maybe some of the questions that we have that will show that they're written in?
Table it?
Isn't it,
And table it?
I was kind of thinking that, but
isn't it redundant?
I wish you could talk, but you can't.
Isn't it redundant? I mean, if we allow this, then it is what it is. It's their responsibility. And,
I love how you keep saying that, but
well, and the county's arguing that they will not honor that responsibility, but that's, I don't think, up to the county to decide whether they will or not, when there are subdivisions that have and some that haven't, different scenarios. But in essence, it's already there. To put it in an HOA document, which we have no control over, and I don't think there's any way we can control that, is redundant at that point, is my only argument. If we could, I'd love to, or like a deed restriction, like I said, but it just seems like a stretch for this particular body, correct? Yeah. And unless somebody can convince me different, I don't see the point in making the petitioner wait another month for something that we probably can't affect.
What I would say is your rules allow you to table the petition if you feel like that there's more information that you need in order to make a decision. If you make both a motion to approve and a motion to deny and both fail, it automatically tables.
And then we'll have Bob back for next month.
But I won't be here next month. Not that it matters, I'm
Great. Okay. Lance Roush, I move that we approve the petition as written.
For variance number 2.
For variance number 2.
Joe Velman, I second the motion.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
No.
Mr. Byers?
If we have 6 members present next month, Bob Hawley's one of them, but one of us is gone. Do we hear this petition from the beginning all over again since Bob wasn't here?
I believe technically speaking, it would be up to the chair whether he felt like opening the public hearing back up. It's not technically required.
Okay.
Bob would have a lot more questions.
That's true.
I'll vote no.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. What? Did she get you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
He said
first.
yes. I'm sorry?
I'm saying yes, he voted already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was first one.
Okay. So, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration,
The petition is automatically continued to the next.
They've got 4.
No.
Oh, they
we have
did?
4.
Oh,
we
you
had
did?
4.
Yeah, there were 4 yeses to approve.
Okay, yes, okay.
Mr. Roush, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Tavernier, and Mr. Velman were
That
yes.
motion passed.
Oh, okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
So based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variances and will issue written findings of the facts.
Petition number 4, 11624 Shively Road. Owner Edwin and Lydan Coons.
I'm just confused.
Requested action, variance number 1, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a 26-foot minimum setback where 35-foot is required for a pole barn addition. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Shelley, could you please click on the PowerPoint? Oh, I went too far. All right, Farial Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff again. The petitioner is requesting a variance for an addition to their pole barn for their farming operation. To give a little bit of background, most of the structures on site here predate a subdivision of land that expanded the county right-of-way by 40 feet. Both the home and the barn are legally non-conforming structures that encroach into 35-foot setback, the house more so than the barn. The house goes into that 35-foot setback by about 23 feet, while the barn is farther back. Here is a picture of the existing home on site, which I was just referencing. And here is that barn structure where they're proposing the addition. It's currently a 36 by 62 barn. Here's a better view of the front of that barn and the empty space next to the barn that's kind of on the west side of the barn where they're proposing most of the expansion. Here it's mostly brush now. This is looking east on Shively Road, arterial country road. And here is looking west. As you can see, this home is surrounded by other agricultural land and similar low-density residential homesteads. Going on to the site plan, so the bottom dotted line is where they have labeled the 35-foot setback. Shively Road is actually the solid line on top. You can think of that middle line as their property line. They are proposing that 40 by 62-foot addition with 2 bump outs. Bump outs, at least one of them facing Shively Road. As you can see, it's kind of the square there. So per our ordinance, property owners can expand along a legally non-conforming structure as long as it does not increase nonconformity. So as it is proposed, this barn addition would increase nonconformity through that bump out they're proposing. So by right, just to say it again, they can extend along the existing line of the barn. They just can't go further into the 35-foot setback, and that small piece they're proposing would do so. Looking at state law criteria, the variance would likely have no impact on public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. Even with the expansion, the current home would still be farther into the 35-foot setback than what the barn would end up being, and the addition would still be at least another 40 foot from the actual road. The use and value of the surrounding properties will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The surrounding properties are all in agricultural use. This addition is to support their farming operation. Staff, however, was not able to find sufficient evidence that would suggest practical difficulty. As I said, we can approve the addition matching the setback or the line of the existing barn. If the petitioner requires additional space for their operation and equipment, there is adequate room to do so on that west side of the barn, the empty space I showed. And there are no unique features of the property that would suggest extra space is needed on the side facing Shively Road. For that reason, staff is recommending denial of the variance and can take questions from the board.
For y'all, if they hadn't, when did the minor subdivision happen?
In 2000, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay, so, and when that happened, that's what triggered the additional right-of-way, correct?
That's
Along
correct.
Shively Road?
Yes.
Okay, so it's always difficult because it's like now it's almost like now they're being penalized because they did a minor sub at some point in the past, because what occurs to me is the house right across the street, right across the road, the farm right across the road doesn't show on GIS or whatever yeah, that one with the yellow line. Go back one more. Right? So the yellow line for this property and the one to the east is back off Shively Road, whereas the property line to the one on the north is not back off Shively Road. Right?
I believe the one that you're referring to on the north is also, actually, I think that one is set back 35 feet.
Well, it doesn't appear to be by the lines. The point
Yeah.
being, we wouldn't be having this discussion if they didn't do the minor sub and the extra road frontage was triggered at that time, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me one moment.
So, properties that don't have dedicated right-of-way, their setback is 75 feet from the center line of the road.
Okay.
So this property here has a 40-foot right-of-way, and then the setback is 35 feet from that, so it's the same.
Huh.
Oh, and then they added it. Oh, okay.
So I was just telling him, actually, where the house is, the right-of-way is 60 foot in total, because there was already 20 foot, and then when they did the minor sub, they added 40 foot.
But still yet, it would be within the 75 foot of center line.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So whether they lost an eighth of an acre or whatever did not necessarily create this condition. That setback would have, if they didn't do the minor sub, the setback would have been 75 feet. Okay.
Yes.
That's a very unique way of getting to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does anybody else got anything?
Nope.
Tom?
I don't think so yet.
All right, is the petitioner present? Name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
Leon Coons, 11790 Shively Road in Napanee. I agree with the zoning board here that it could be built without those two bump outs. But for ease of building, the one bump out is just simply a little cement pad for an air conditioning unit to sit on for cooling sweet corn and watermelons and et cetera. And the other is to back a truck in to load this farm product. It needs to be an angle. It just bumps it out at an angle. It's basically a loading dock. Again, that we could push it back and like move the whole building south 10 feet or 6 feet, whatever it takes. But when you're building leans, is for the practical building, it's just so much easier to build it the same length, which is 62 foot. I had pulled a permit to build it back, and I talked with Sean and maybe several of the others of the planning commission, and I had the permit maybe 18 months already, but every time I looked at building this thing, I was like, it'd be a lot easier to just ask for a variance and put two bump outs in there, one to set the air conditioner on, and the other to allow for the angled truck dock, which is both of those I want to cover with roof, obviously, to save the unit, and the other just so we don't get wet when it's raining and we're loading sweet corn. So further than that, that's all I got really is that's
So hold
where
on, are you not enclosing this little bump out?
it would be open air, but it would have a roof over it to protect that air conditioner from rain and elements. The other bump out might have a little roof over it, just to, so it protects us from the rain when we're loading.
So it's more like a porch for
So-
each side instead of an enclosure.
Okay, but can't he, concrete he doesn't need a variance for concrete, right? And secondly, this is into the, well, you're only able 18 inches. I was gonna say, you could just not put posts on them and put corbels on it, and then you wouldn't need any posts, and then technically, but you can only go 18 inches into the.
Setback.
treat it like an
Into the
overhang.
setback. Yeah, treat it as a setback, yeah. If it's not enclosed,
I would suggest that the truck dock would be enclosed. It would just not be as high as the rest of the building. I would just,
You'd put two sides on it, but be open on the front.
right.
Gotcha. For weather tight, weather.
for the AC unit area?
For the truck. Truck dock, you said. Yeah, I would highly recommend you don't put a roof over top the AC unit.
Is it 18 inches?
So there are walls though, correct? It's not just a roof overhang.
Right, but what I was saying is he wouldn't need this if he just did it as an overhang.
He
with
could go
corbels.
3 feet into the front yard if it's just an overhang.
Thought it was only 18.
It depends on the yard.
Yeah, that's the side yard. I think you remember that from that garage. So,
Yeah, I mean, you can go through all this and
Question,
Made his choice.
is the building actually square? I mean, at the truck dock area, you got it kinda going off at an angle, that's just the dock, or is the building gonna go off at an angle too?
It would be square as far as the roof line, but the walls would be jutting out along that angle, and then a smaller roof to cover that.
Oh, I got you. But the actual structure where you're gonna be working out of is actually a rectangle or square.
Right.
So how far into the right of way is that? Only looks to be about maybe 3 foot?
The actual structure is 3 to 4 foot.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, if you can go 3 feet, just don't put sides on it, and then you don't need the variance.
That's what the plan commission told me right up front, but it happens to face the road, and the road is where we load our products. We can't technically load in the back end of the farm because we can't get semis in there. And so that's why we want the cooler up front, that's why we want the truck dock up front.
And it'll be empty 90% of the time.
Okay.
I apologize. Mr. Coons, could you clarify if you're planning to put, you're talking about like a AC unit on that side bump out or on the front bump out?
It would be towards the road,
The front bump out,
right?
okay. Like a cool bot machine kind of, or something like
Right,
that?
right,
Gotcha.
yep.
So that would then need to be enclosed?
No. It
Not
would
necessarily.
be open air with the roof on top.
Okay, with the cool bot, okay, got it.
I don't think
Just
we're,
a roof on top of
Just the roof on top,
it,
yeah.
3 feet out.
Because the air conditioner won't work in an enclosed area.
I understand, I'm just trying to clarify. Okay, so really, he's only looking for a variance for the one little bump. Okay, so that little bump out up against that dotted line, the one where it comes across at a little bit of an angle and then juts up and then comes back down, that's only 3 feet out?
Not more than 3 feet, yeah. But the roof, I don't know how the roof line, once you get a 18-inch overhang on there, I'm not sure how that all pans out on the overhang, but
well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's a whole structure that's way farther in front of that on that same piece of land.
That's the house, isn't it?
Yeah. If it's gonna stick out way farther than the rest of that building.
This is what we're looking at, but isn't that legal non-conforming?
That's correct, and
Yeah.
That's way
the
life
house
is.
you're talking about,
Welcome
right?
to the county.
Yeah, the house is legal non-conforming and encroaches 23 feet into the setback, and it will be farther in.
I understand.
It's on the same property.
Add to the problem, but.
I don't think, I don't feel it's adding to the problem. You already have a huge problem right here. That's less than what that is.
Hey, man, I'm just one guy.
So staff's findings were that it did not adversely impact the area adjacent. It wasn't injurious. Based on what was provided to us, we found that there was not sufficient practical difficulty to warrant the granting of the variance. So,
Right, because it
Which
could
is a matter of
basically be
opinion.
right, so if you find that there's sufficient practical difficulty that's been demonstrated through this
I
process.
understand exactly where you're coming from.
Okay, go through your motions.
Tom has a question, I think.
Is this the only area on Shively Road in this immediate area where the additional right-of-way's been dedicated?
Let me look, I have it up.
I'm just
I can tell
curious. I
you.
know it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily have anything to do with the variance, but
He said the only
I
area.
looked at it this morning, Tom. I looked all up and down, Shively, Tyler, Pierce.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
very,
Well,
it's
I
like
mean,
if
in
something
this
happened,
immediate area.
yes, yeah. And you look at Miami and it's like this, all up and down, you know, it's really random.
Yeah, and do the motion.
That's going from north to south.
All right, you guys got anything else?
no.
No? Thanks, sir. All right, we'll open this up to the public. Anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Oh, see none. Public portion is now closed.
No neighbors have a problem with sweet corn.
No?
Fascinating.
Mr. Chairman, while I do appreciate staff's comments on encroaching more into the right-of-way that was identified after this, I feel that it is not injurious to anyone or is a practical difficulty. It would be a practical difficulty not to keep the barn as the same structure style of the two sides going down the same area, to build it back enough footage to incorporate the needed truck dock and air conditioning platform. Would I think would be a hardship for this, for the petitioner. So I would make a motion to approve the setback as requested, subject to the conditions as imposed in the staff's comments.
Lance Roush, second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance subject to the conditions of the staff report and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Petition number 5, location 4218 Governors Boulevard, entrance to Georgetown Apartments, owner RPF Georgetown LLC, requested action, variance from section 154.372 sub J3 to allow a place identification sign with an area of 44 square feet where a maximum of 32 square feet is permitted for a new entrance sign for an existing apartment complex. Zoning PUD, Plan Unit Development District, County.
Can you click on that PowerPoint one more time? This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this is for Georgetown Apartment Complex. They want to replace their existing sign, as shown here. The existing sign is approximately 60 square feet. Under the current zoning ordinance for these place identification signs, as it would be classified, they are limited to 32 square feet. What they are now proposing is 44 square feet, so 12 square feet larger than what would be permitted by right. Staff does recommend approval of the variance. As you can see, this portion of the street is fairly tree-lined. And if you look at the aerial, there is a bit of a bend there. So it kind of limits the actual length of the street at which point the sign is actually visible. So we find that there is going to be some practical difficulty there. It's the existing base that's going to be reused, and this is the proposed new sign. Turning to the state law criteria, we find that it would not be injurious to public health, morals, or general welfare to allow a sign that's 12 square feet larger than what is permitted by right. Furthermore, it is not in the clear sight triangle for that drive that opens up onto the street, so we find that it's not going to be injurious to public safety. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. As I mentioned, the street is tree-lined. There are actually some large groves of trees between the sign and the two-family and single-family residential uses off to the southeast there. So it's not going to be terribly visible from those properties, and it's also not really visible from any properties outside the planned unit development itself. Turning to the final criteria, we find that limiting the size of the sign to 32 square feet could result in practical difficulties. As I mentioned, the road is curved, so when you come around that bend, there is limited time for you to actually see that sign and realize that the entrance is there. So we do feel that a bit larger size for the sign is warranted for wayfinding purposes. Additionally, as I mentioned, they are going to be reusing that existing base. So aesthetically, a smaller sign might not just look as good with the existing base. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anybody got anything?
So the 44 square feet only encompasses the new section in that particular, so the base does not count towards that, correct?
Correct. The base is exempt because it's under 36 inches in height.
Anybody give me any theory as to why we don't include the base in these calculations? Because it's still part of a monument sign.
I didn't draft the sign ordinance.
My feeling is that, I mean, we're trying to encourage monument-style signs. We know that that a lot of times they like to elevate them like that to have landscaping, but if it's excessive and you're kind of like skirting toward a non-monument style sign we count the area as the base as area if it's over 3 feet, which is what Sean said, but like, as a means to discourage them from.
And I think that's just it. I mean, we're trying to encourage monument signs. Also, it's only exempt if it's masonry, so that's kind of part of it too. So it just goes to the overall appearance of the sign and what the
Okay, let's
ordinance
back
is.
up just a pinch. Monument versus non-monument. Define that, please.
That's where I was gonna
Pole
go
sign.
next.
Huh?
Pole sign.
And what's the restriction on a pole sign?
Well, you have an increased setback of
Okay.
25 feet versus 10 feet for a monument style. So you get to put your monument style sign closer to the property line.
Have we never brought a sign variance to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't deal with this every day, so I'm asking questions
Remember
on.
the cheat sheet?
Well, I was going to allude to that, Lance. Thank
Here
you
we are
very
again.
much, because would it change if it was
Coming
a,
up.
is a pole sign, so say they did not have say the existing sign that we have in this picture and we've seen was built on 2 4x4 6x6 posts. Would it still have to meet the 44 square feet?
Or 32.
Or, I'm sorry, 32 square feet?
So the poles, if they're narrower than 2 feet, is it?
I'm looking, Joe.
Okay.
Bear with me.
In most cases, the poles would not be counted towards the square footage, to answer your question.
Oh, I'm okay with that, but it would still be 32 square feet then?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
understood.
This
And-
36 inches is still considered like it is for concrete and flat work for the building of 30 inches, right? That's just the signs variation of that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So same thing in building. Anything under 30 inches off the ground is considered flat work. So this is just the signs variation.
Pretty tall flat work.
That's what it is.
I understand.
All right, anybody else got anything? No? Okay. Petitioner present? On Zoom?
Present.
Name and address, please.
Cooper Annenberg. Address is 4315 Wimbledon Court, South Bend, Indiana. We've owned this asset for about almost 8 years. We continually to invest our capital back into the apartments, redoing this entrance sign, along with other signage on our property is next on our budget for next year. So this will help modernize and upgrade the property. And I believe someone on Zoom, like 2 hours ago, asked about a sign that is off property. We don't legally own that. I and I think Sean looked into who owned those and weren't able to get a contact. We would like to redo those as well, but we will have to push that for another time. If anyone has any questions,
Yeah.
please let me know.
Let's just focus on this sign.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that was not directed at you, sorry.
No. But I remembered like 2 hours ago, someone had asked.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And
I've been waiting patiently.
you dodged a bullet, man.
Yeah.
All right, you guys got anything for the
Hang it in
petitioner?
there.
Sure, I do.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
So you have a lot of open space above the Georgetown on non-illuminated cabinet painted PMS 2330 on top. Is there a reason there is so much on top there, why?
It looks aesthetically pleasing, helps at night when it gets illuminated to see it better.
That way the lights don't probably have to be so bright.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anybody else?
I must have missed it. How big's the old sign?
60.
Yeah, so this is going to be slightly
60
smaller.
square feet existing,
Okay, I missed it. I didn't
going
see
down
it.
to 44 proposed.
Yeah, they're downgrading.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else got anything for the petitioner? No? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
We'll open it to the public. If there is
Well, where
anybody.
are they?
Anybody?
Seeing none.
I still have to say this. Anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition, please step forward. Seeing absolutely none. Any on Zoom? Which, none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. They did leave for happy hour.
What?
I said you're my favorite.
We could have happy hour here
Can I get a motion?
in a minute.
No.
Wow.
No. Don't everybody talk
Lance
at once.
Roush, I would like to make the motion we approve the variance as written.
Sid Schaefer, I'll second it.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Bellman?
Nope.
Mr. Roush?
I don't like it.
Yes. I do like it.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Do we not have to say per the staff's recommendations now?
It's funny you bring that up, Joe, because I do have a script for you guys.
Yeah.
Here's your cheat sheet.
No, it's just the script for
Just
making motions.
For making motions.
Oh, no, I make my own motion.
I know you do,
I'd like
which is
to-
why there's a script now.
Would very much like a
Do you,
cheat
do
sheet.
you see the draft
It
watermark?
would be fantastic
You
if
can
it was
draft-
I just had
consistent.
Brandy review
Draft all
it.
you want.
So next month I'll have a script.
I keep Shelley on her toes because she has to type that all up.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, well, then as quality control, I gotta do my due diligence to make sure it's typed up correctly.
Quality control.
Spelling and grammar. Thank you,
I don't know
Donnie.
why it changes Sydney's motions, but it does automatically.
I thought we had, do we not have findings of
You
the
do,
facts?
you have
We
finding.
do. Finding the facts, we have finding the facts and,
have
and
two.
minutes.
I have
Find all
two
kinds
sets
Two
of
minutes,
minutes.
2 minutes.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I don't have any findings of the facts.
Did they accidentally get attached
You certainly
to your
do.
minutes? I have
Did you
signed
not
copies for
download
it.
them off of the website as Shelley sent them to us beforehand so we can review them before we come to this meeting?
Just because I didn't look at them doesn't negate the fact I don't have them.
I have your signed copies on my desk here.
All right.
Would you like them right now?
Never mind. They're
Mr.
right
Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the findings of the facts as written from the, what was this one again? The November 15th, no, sorry, from the October 11th, 2023 meeting.
Donnie Ritzma, second.
here. All right, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Okay. 3:53 p.m. Okay. August minutes.
I did find a correction on the agenda. It states August 9th, but the meeting was August 22nd.
Oh, yeah.
Where were you when I was in high school?
What do you mean?
Because
I was in high
couldn't-
school too,
I-
just not with you.
I know, but I needed you at my high school.
That's why I have 3 people proofread my stuff
Technically, you
before it
did,
goes out the
'cause I'm
door.
married to-
That's true.
I'm sorry, I missed out on the nomination of DJ.
Written my papers.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes from August 22nd meeting on the condition that on the agenda it's updated. I don't know, does that matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, never mind. Then I make a motion to approve the
The
minutes.
minutes are correct, it's just an error on the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it
Second
to
the
our
motion.
attention.
Joe. Donnie motion, Joe second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 3:54.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the September meeting minutes as written.
Donnie Ritzma, second.
motion, Donnie second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Joe motion,
Dr. Hirschfeld, second.
Donnie second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Had to do it. That's why I still gotta go back to work.
Well, we tried.